K-pop Demon Hunters manages to blend action, comedy, and music in an incredible way. But did you notice that some hilarious scenes become even funnier when you pause at just the right moment? When the girls meet the Saja boys for the first time, they are completely blown away by how handsome they are. The boy band draws even more attention when they start singing right in the middle of the city, which makes the girls follow after them. However, since they are extremely famous idols, they need to stay disguised so they don't attract attention. The problem is that when it's time for Roomie to put on her disguise, Zoe shows absolutely no mercy and yanks the strings of her friend's hoodie, tightening the hood so much that Roomie gets all squished, with her eyes completely bulging out. The scene is already hilarious, but when we pause and really look at Roomie's huge eyes, it somehow gets even better. That's exactly why we should never pause K-pop Demon Hunters. Do you think you can watch this video without laughing? You already know, right? Another Cinewave is starting! Roomie's relationship with Jinu is amazing, starting off with distrust and quickly evolving into a romance. The two of them also share some very funny moments, like this one where Jinu turns around and suddenly bumps straight into Roomie. It's only when we pause that we realize just how shocked he really is. And seeing a demon like that is already a great reason to laugh. How can anyone say that all demons are heartless monsters when some of them get scared so easily? Some frames from the movie completely blew up online for being extremely funny, and the most famous one is definitely the face Roomie makes after taking a very exaggerated sniff of a little sushi bun. For some reason, her face looks so weird and funny that some people might even think she's having a stroke or something like that. Seriously, how can a human being make a face like that? I mean, she's not exactly human when you stop to think about it. Yeah, that actually makes more sense than it should. As if making just one creepy face wasn't enough, Roomie then decides to swallow the sushi bun in one single bite without even chewing. She simply shoves the entire thing straight down her throat, creating another image that's very funny and also kind of scary. Some people even like to say this is a hint at Roomie's demonic nature, since a human would never be able to swallow something like that without getting sick, while a half-demon might actually be a supernatural creature. Does that make sense, or are we just overthinking it? If there's one thing demon hunters love to do, it's making faces. They spend the entire movie pulling expressions like the ones we just showed, but another incredible moment happens when they decide to wipe out the Saja boys. The three of them start screaming like a bunch of lunatics, while their faces become so distorted that not even a Hunt fan would be able to recognize them. They might think they're just really ugly cosplayers pretending to be the idols. In fact, one of the faces Mira makes in that scene isn't just a random ugly expression, but a reference to one of the weirdest and most popular anime from Japan, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is known for having extremely square, muscular characters who constantly strike bizarre poses and make exaggerated faces that became iconic. It's no surprise that many anime and cartoons pay tribute to JoJo's art style, giving rise to the term JoJo reference. Since K-pop Demon Hunters has a style heavily inspired by anime, of course the movie couldn't miss the chance to include a JoJo reference. Another anime reference appears when we see a piece of fan art that ships Roomie with Jinu. The drawing is extremely poorly made and even kind of terrifying, but what few people know is that it's connected to an anime that many fans love, One Punch Man. The series is about Saitama, a superhero who lost all his hair from training so hard and became strong enough to defeat anyone with a single punch. The art in the first season is very good, while the later seasons suffered a noticeable drop in quality. Meanwhile, the manga's artwork remains incredible to this day, but to be more specific, the scene in the movie is actually a reference to the original One Punch Man webcomic, which was released online and has a very strange art style, because the artist who created the franchise didn't know how to draw very well at the time. If you also love this kind of funny reference like we do, comment down below #humor. Roomie and Jinu didn't have the best reaction when they saw the drawing, and they were clearly freaked out by the bizarre artwork. However, they couldn't let that show, so they had to respond to the fan with a smile, which didn't help much because they actually looked even more terrifying trying to smile after what they had just seen. At least the fan was right to ship the two of them, since they are the only ones between the Huntrix and the Saja boys who really had any chance of becoming a couple. At this point, it's easy to conclude that Roomie is amazing at doing weird things, whether she's alone or surrounded by other people. When she and her friends crash the variety show where the Saja boys are performing, Roomie starts walking in a very strange way, all hunched over. In this frame, she looks more like a villain than anything else. So are the Saja boys really the enemies? Or were the Huntrix the real villains this whole time? When the Huntrix are spotted by the audience at the variety show, they end up being forced to participate in the program and slide down 3 different slides. The scene is already kind of awkward on its own, but it becomes even harder to watch when we pause at the exact moment they're coming down the slides with those faces of people who know that everything that could possibly go wrong already did, and now they'll just have to figure out how to survive that situation however they can. At least they weren't the only ones embarrassing themselves on that show, because the Saja boys had to take part in a challenge where they had to drink a bottle filled with pepper, and of course, that resulted in some extremely ridiculous faces. The weirdest one of all was Romance's, who was clearly doing everything he could not to give up on the whole thing and go back to the underworld, where he wouldn't have to go through this kind of humiliation anymore. He'll probably never want to see a spicy drink or a baby bottle ever again. As for Baby, he didn't seem to mind the bottle at all since he won the challenge with ease. Even so, his face ends up looking absolutely hilarious. We can't tell whether that little pout is meant to be sarcastic or if he's just completely bored. This scene gets even funnier when we remember that Baby only acts like this in front of the cameras and actually hates having to play the role of the youngest member of the group. Now it's time to go back to that incredible scene of Roomie, Zoe, and Mira eating a ton of junk food at the beginning of the movie, because it's packed with moments that become hilarious when you pause at just the right time. Just the part where the girls celebrate the fact that they're about to eat already gets a lot of laughs because they're completely unhinged, just like any of us get when our stomachs are growling and we finally get the chance to devour a bunch of food. Who would have thought the Huntrix are just like us? Zoe is already the cutest character in the movie, but this scene somehow makes her even cuter while she's eating. That's because Zoe literally changes shape, becoming small and chubby. Once again, we see a clear anime reference, since it's very common in anime for characters to take on this extra cute appearance in specific scenes. This style, where characters become shorter with oversized heads, is known as Chibi. There's a new video here every day, so subscribe and hit the bell to stay up to date. Another completely wild moment involving Zoe eating non-stop happens when she eats an orange. After all, instead of simply eating the orange like a normal human being, the idol straight up swallows the entire fruit in one go. Yes, peel and all. Honestly, it doesn't even look like she swallowed it. It's more like the orange was instantly erased from existence in the blink of an eye. How did Zoe manage to do that? Did you think the strange faces Roomie makes in this scene were over? Well, you couldn't be more wrong. There's a moment when her mouth gets so full that she looks like a completely different person, or rather, like she's turned into a squirrel. That's the only way she could possibly store that much food in her cheeks. Honestly, Roomie could probably defeat any demon if she managed to spit out all the food in her mouth like a machine gun. Most of the time when the Huntrix make funny faces, it's genuinely hilarious, but sometimes it's just plain creepy. That's exactly what happens when Roomie, Zoe, and Mira put on makeup to hide their injuries and start smiling as if they hadn't just come out of a battle. Roomie and Zoe smile in such an unnatural way that they look like they've been replaced by monsters, or that they're just straight up psychopaths. Before we finish talking about the funny scenes starring Roomie, we have to mention the moment when she and her friends see the Saja boys for the first time and Roomie ends up tripping. That alone would already be funny, but as if that weren't enough, Roomie makes an even more noticeable face when the movie is paused. That's the only way we can truly catch the look of confusion and humiliation on the poor girl's face. Even though he mostly works behind the scenes, Bobby also loves to dance, and we see that several times throughout the movie. But in this scene, Bobby gets a little too carried away and ends up slapping another member of the show's production crew. If you pause the movie at that exact moment, you'll notice just how caught off guard the poor guy who got slapped really was. He'll probably end up quitting after that. What a mess, huh, Bobby? Now, a darker detail appears near the end of the movie, when the Saja boys invite the entire city to a special concert, obviously with the intention of sucking everyone's soul. What's very hard to notice if you don't pause the movie is that before the city's big screen starts broadcasting the Saja boys' message, it begins to glitch. During that brief moment, a dark image flashes, showing the Saja boys' true form, but it goes by so fast that you can barely see it. To wrap things up, here's a small but interesting detail. In the Golden music video, Zoe is shown holding a vinyl record, but this isn't just any record, it's an album by the group Sunlight Sisters. If you remember the movie well, you'll know that this group is actually the previous generation of demon hunters. Celine, who trained the Huntrix, was part of that group, along with Roomie's late biological mother. This means Zoe was probably a fan of the Sunlight Sisters long before she ever found out they hunted demons in their spare time.
We've left 2 videos on your screen so you can choose and keep having fun with us. See you in the next video!